Okay, the world is changing faster than at any time in human history, and most of us are still reluctant to step outside of today's frameworks. Philip Stevens, he's a journalist in the Financial Times in England, and he had no idea how true these words were. But he said this 6 years ago. I'm going to show you just how much the world has changed in the last 6 years. Who knows what and if you were in my board meeting presentation, don't jump the gun. Who knows what this date symbolizes? It changed our lives forever. Anybody want to take a stab at it? iPhone, you got it. All right, that's right. That's when this bad boy was created. Now, this thing changed our lives because it was combined technology. It automatically made, we don't even know how many devices obsolete, right? But we know over 100 of them, instantaneously done. My wife and I went to, what was it? Europe, in 2005. I brought a digital camera back in the day when they were 3.2 megabyte pixel, whatever the heck it was. She brought a film camera. Guess who was using the digital camera halfway through? Well, think about what happened to that digital camera. It's gone. It went inside of a phone. Who could have predicted that? Nobody. Except for one guy, Steve Jobs. Okay, this is the rate of change that we're used to. Electricity. This is called the adoption rate of technology. Took 45 years, once electricity was created, for 25% of the population to get it. Okay? Phone, another big invention, 35 years. Radio, 31. TV, 26. The one that surprises people is it took 16 years to get a PC in a quarter of the households here. That's pretty significant. I remember growing up when they sold Apple computers door to door. My buddy's family bought one. You know what we did with that computer? Played video games. We're like, can you believe we're playing video games like this in our house? This is crazy. Okay. 2.75 years to get an iPhone into 1 in 4 people's hands. Not a smartphone, an iPhone. Now, the crazy thing is when, that picture of Steve Jobs holding that thing up in 2007, if he were to tell us that in less than 10 years he was going to sell 1 billion of them, we would have laughed. Said, how long did it take McDonald's to make 1 billion hamburgers? I mean, we can't even fathom 1 billion, but he sold 1 billion iPhones. So, who could have predicted that 7 out of 10 people in the United States would own and use a smartphone in 2018? Now, when I was at the board meeting, I asked everybody to raise their hand if they use a smartphone. You know what the percentage was? 100. Now, the really cool thing is I asked that question about the date. Guess who got it? One of the oldest guys in the room got that date. I was like, you are dialed in. Okay. So that is 248 million people. Now, what's interesting about this number is that's the population of the United States when I was in my first year of college. So if you were to tell me that, hey, Rob, guess what's going to happen? Everybody's going to have a supercomputer in their pocket connected to about 3 billion people. My first question would be, how are they going to be connected? Because it wasn't until the next year that the internet went live, and that took 7 years to get 25% of the people on that. So things are getting crazy because I wanted to point out Philip Stevens made his quote in 2012. These are zettabytes, okay? A zettabyte is a measurement of information. So that's 1,000 to the 7th power gigabytes, okay? So in 2012, that's when Stevens is like, things are changing so rapidly. Little did he know what was going to go on, right? 2012 was the first year that they had big data. That's when Barack Obama won the election. They said he won it because he used big data. I think I got this dialed in. But who could have predicted that? The answer is no one. Okay? If you think about it, what they teach you in innovation is, in a dynamic environment, the past is not an indicator of the future. So you can't plan for it. Okay? Because you don't know. You can't plan for something that you have no idea what's going to happen. So what do? You have to experiment. You have to prototype. You have to design your way forward. So what was George Fox doing in 2007? there are 4 big things. Let's see if you can guess one of them. Anybody want to wager a guess? What big thing happened to George Fox? Hey, that's better than the board of trustees. They were all sitting here going, I don't know what. I'm like, that guy was running this meeting for the first time. Yes, Robin Baker became president of George Fox University, and then we were talking to these guys. In 2007, we were living in a box, and that box was called Vitech. And we got the notification. Maybe it was an email. Maybe it was a cell phone call that, hey, we're going down. This thing's dead. We're not going to support it anymore. And we went, okay, so what are we going to do? And we said, we're going to go out and buy the biggest box in the world. And that is Oracle. Actually, Oracle in 2008, their tagline was the information company. I mean, I like how they used the definitive article, the information company. And they were the largest enterprise software company in the world at the time. And they still are, I think, one of them. I just didn't research it. So we said, all right, we're going to jump out of this box into this box, okay? So when you do end of life and you jump out of a box, how many of you were here when we jumped from one box to the next? How was that experience? Horrible. Yeah. Why? Because it's like, we don't have time. Get your stuff and jump, right? And so you jumped into that bad boy, and then you jumped into the box and went, what's all this other stuff? And you live your life now in that world, okay? And you all know what that's like. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. So in 2007, this is what My GFU looked like on an iPhone. And this is what it looks like in 2018. So much for high tech. But I'm told by Tim it's going to look different in how long? 9 months. Okay. So see, it only took Oracle like a decade and a half to get up to speed. And that's the world's biggest tech company in this space. Okay, so let's move forward. So there's a few things that have happened since President Baker became president. Netflix in 2007 did something big. They started streaming. Do you remember when they started streaming? You're like, how are you going to do this? I don't have enough bandwidth, right? I can't do it. And they were telling us that you couldn't send your DVDs in. I was like, you're going down. Netflix is going out of business. Now, I should have been like buying Netflix stock. At that year, they were 30% of all of the web traffic in the world. Now they're at 15% because there's other stuff going on too, like YouTube. Airbnb, 2 guys, 3 air mattresses. They said, hey, we live in San Fran. There's this conference. Do you think like guys would rent this thing for like $50? And they're like, yeah, I think so. And they put some existing technology together, and then they figured out, wait, if I can rent an air mattress, I could rent out a castle or a tree house or my mother's house. And boom, they disrupted an entire industry. Uber did the same thing. Why are taxi drivers somehow the epitome of safe driving? Have you ever driven with a taxi driver? You're just like, oh my gosh. I took a trip when I was in New York City. I said, we got to take a cab. And so we jumped in a cab, and I said, like, do your New York taxi thing. And he did. And I was like, oh my gosh. And there's like, no, he's not telling you to put your seatbelt on. He's like, we're getting off in a block. So Uber said, hey, you drive your kids to school. Why can't you drive some stranger down the street? And they disrupted the market. They have like a bigger market capitalization like GM. Then our man Steve Jobs comes back in the picture with a giant iPhone. And you're like, why? I'm not going to buy a giant iPhone. What am I going to do with that thing? Well, it became the fastest selling piece of technology in history and started replacing all the notebooks. Almost killed them all. 2011, the first MOOC launches, artificial intelligence at Stanford. 160,000 people enroll, 20,000 complete. Big data I've already told you about in 2012. Coursera, second year, 5.2 million students. 2014, the president of McGraw-Hill textbook says textbooks are dead. And then he goes on to say, they're dinosaurs. How many textbooks we sell? Did you know that's the 3rd highest cost for students? So I'd ask that guy, so what are you going to do? I mean, is this like all free now, or, you know, how's this work? Facebook becomes the largest country in the world. So 1.3 1.9 billion active users, which surpasses the population of China in 2015. Then Alexa brings artificial intelligence into our homes via the Echo. And then Purdue University in 2017 finishes the deal on buying Kaplan University. Now think about this. There are over 4,000 colleges in the United States. They're ranked number 56 out of those 4,000. Okay? And they're a land-grant-based institution, and they're a very fine institution. But they see something. They bought Kaplan. And then a whole slew of articles, which I'm sure you guys are seeing, of all the companies that say, we don't care if you have a college degree, we'll hire you anyway. So the world has changed. Meanwhile, in the background, some big stuff's going on. As soon as Robin Baker becomes president, the housing bubble pops. We say, oh man, maybe that's a sign. No, that bubble pops. Then right after that, the Great Recession starts in 2008. Lehman Brothers, which is over 80 years old, files for bankruptcy, and investment banking almost just eviscerates. Then in 2010, it's the peak of the unemployment rate. Now, during this time, you start hearing things like, how many internships do your students get? What's your jobs percentage after graduation? Because in 2008, that's the first time when parents know exactly how much they can afford. Because before that, everything's going like this. My home value's getting higher. My portfolio's going like this. And I'm like, how much is tuition? I think we got it, right? They're taking out second mortgages on their house. Why not? Then, in 2012, you have the first national decline in enrollment. 2.6 million fewer students than the year before going to college. First time in like over a decade. 1.3 million of those are fewer face-to-face students. Then, in 2017, Clayton Christensen, author of The Innovator's Dilemma, Innovative University, Harvard business professor, he's the one that Steve Jobs read his book and sort of took that tact with the iPod. Kill the iPod, right? The Innovator's Dilemma is you can't get over your innovation. He said, we're going to get rid of the iPod, we're going to steal something better. Cannibalize yourself. So Clayton Christensen said a number of years back, 50% of all colleges will be bankrupt within 10 or 15 years. So last year, he says, he was asked about his prediction. He says, I'm going to double down and say less than 9. Why did he say that? I'm going to get into that. Then Moody's, this last year, downgrades all of higher ed from stable to negative. Why? Inflation's going up. Interest rates are going up, enrollments are going down, tuition is hitting a ceiling, and the cost structure is getting too big. They downgrade everybody, even Harvard. Last year, we haven't gotten this report yet for this year, but 76% of the Christian colleges, and this is NAC, have about 150 schools, missed their enrollment goals, and 48% had lower enrollments than the previous fall, which, by the way, they had lower enrollments the fall before that, and the fall before that, and the fall before that, and the fall before that. So that equals about 4,000 students, or 6.3%. Why is this happening? Well, the world is changing, right? It's changing fast. Well, let's go back here. While we're still doing this, technology is doing this. And I think I have to have IT hit this and crank up the volume for me. This is Lindsay Knox's daughter. She just asked Alexa to play Mary Poppins.
Playing Mary Poppins by various artists from Spotify.
Now that is Violet Knox. She is 2 years old. Okay? Now you got to exit out of that and then advance the slide. It's a little technical wizardry. Yeah, hit that little advance button. So, think about this. That iPhone over there, think of the kids that are growing up on that, and their world is so different. That little girl is voice commanding a computer to do something for her. Okay? Do you think she's going to go to university like we have today? No, she is not. What's going to prevent her from going, Alexa, teach me Descartes? Alexa, actually go find out who the best person who teaches Descartes is, and then set up a schedule for me to learn from him while I'm just doing the dishes for mom. Okay, now you got to exit out of that and let me, advance that. So, while that's going on, Wired Magazine has this big article about the pace of change in higher education and the frustration that businesses have that it's not changing fast enough to give them what they need. This is especially hard in the tech sphere because as soon as universities adopt technology, we're already on to new technology. In the future, there's not going to be a whole lot of technology that's going to be taught, or you're not going to get a whole lot of degrees in technology from universities or from the majority of universities because it's already available. But you can kind of see from these quotes, it's happening too fast. We're not changing fast enough. We are a medieval organization with some iterations along the way, right? But we have a pace of change that is not very fast. So what do students want? They want options and flexibility. There's my man Clayton Christensen back again with his book, The Innovative University. But his quote is, let the students learn when they're ready and how they want to learn, not when and how we're ready to teach them. So I'm going to give an example from our own hometown. Becca Baker, one of Robin's daughters. Robin was sharing this story with me. So Becca graduates in social work, and then she goes and she does her thing, right? A lot of millennials want to go out and they want to experiment and do some artistic stuff, be a barista, work in the restaurant. I mean, they want to do the Portland thing, right? Or the Oregon thing. But now, guess what happens? At some point, they become interested. They become interested in business. Robin was saying she wants to learn something about business. Well, that raises a couple questions. First question is, shouldn't every student know about business before they leave this place? Right? Because guess what? 100% of the students that leave this place, they're going to work for a business. Either a nonprofit or a for-profit, or something that hasn't yet to be created. So the question is, we've got a gap. She wants business training. So what does George Fox say? What do we do for her? Say, well, why don't you wait until January and take some business classes? Well, January is too late. I don't have that much time, right? Or go get an MBA. Shell out another 20 grand or so, right? Or get another degree. Well, that's not exactly what she wants. Getting back to what Clayton Christensen says, she wants something specific. So when I was giving this presentation, I think Dave Anderson was sitting right in front of me, the CEO and chairman of Anderson Construction. I said, what if Dave taught these guys what he knows about business? And maybe she's got like 10 friends, or maybe there's 100 people that want to learn from Dave, and he says, I'll do it in like 3 weeks. And I'll give you a certificate. And when you go to get a job and they say, who'd you learn business from? You can say, Dave Anderson, CEO and chairman of Anderson Construction. Among other companies, they have over $1 billion. That's pretty powerful. So how do we do something like this? Well, we solve these two problems, okay? We got to create a seamless experience, which you guys have heard a lot of us talking about over the years, and it needs to be scalable. So scalability is we can't keep costing more every time we add a student, right? So as we grow, our size grows too, and then you get this enormous amount of pressure. Like, oh my gosh, Ryan, you need to get up here and explain why you're off by like 2 percentage points. That's called thin margins, right? Scalability is once you scale, boom, it doesn't cost that much money to scale out. You could have 10 students or 10,000 students. So this is the Sandbox College concept. I'm calling it a new vision to solve an old problem, where students can co-create the path to their destinations. Nick Willis, I always give him credit for this. You know why you have those zigzags in the quad that are paved? You know how those got there? Do you ever wonder about that? Yeah, people just started walking down the path, and then we came in and we paved it. We should do the same thing with degrees. Shortest path to their destination. And what if employers could co-create those paths too? Now, when I was saying this, I had board members who were business people going, oh yeah, I like that. Where classes are offered according to real-time needs of the marketplace, like Becca, like others. And colleges' systems are connected to real-time marketplace data. Did you know that all this information is already there? Nothing I'm talking about is new technology. It's all existing technology. Just like Uber, just like Airbnb, these are all pre-existing technologies that we're just not using. So this is the basic idea. Now, when I looked up the term academe, the use case was bridging the gap between academe and industry. That's literally in the dictionary. So what the Sandbox tries to do is it tries to take the things that industry is pushing on us, but preserve the things that are valuable. Because this is like this battle where everybody's wrong. It's a zero-sum game, right? Industry's like, higher ed is just a waste. Well, that's just not true. There's a lot of valuable things that we do, and there are some things you just can't do online, right? There are some things that do take time. And people come to college for all kinds of different reasons. Some people come to college just to grow up, right? It's like finishing school for adulthood. Other people come for a job. Other people have served in the military. They're grown-ups, and they're coming here and saying, I'm coming here for one specific purpose. Another person might be coming here to find their friends and their future spouse. It's all different. So the Sandbox creates space to create change. This is one of the challenges. But what kind of change are we talking about? Well, transformative change. Who we educate, how we educate, why we educate, when we educate, and where we educate. So this is innovative change. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about these things, but you're going to start hearing about blockchain. So the tech guys know about blockchain. Some of you might, how many of you have heard about blockchain? Okay, within the next probably year and a half, you will all know what blockchain is. It's going to totally disrupt your life in a good way. It's going to basically allow you to own your records for your health, for education, for everything. You will open up your blockchain and people will look inside of it. When you go for a job, you will open up your blockchain and they will see everything that they want to see about you, that you want to let them have access to. But in the future, they're going to see who taught your class. And let me give you an example. Two people go to take an accounting job, and they're going to say, I want to see who you took accounting from. And they'll say, there's these two people we're looking at. One guy took accounting from a guy who graduated the year before he did, and this other guy took accounting from a guy who was a 30-year CPA. Well, I guess all things being equal, we'll take that guy. Okay? It's going to add a layer of accountability we've never seen before. And it's going to happen super fast. I was just at a blockchain event in Portland. There are people here who are dubbing this place the blockchain state. That's how hardcore they're getting. And Oral Roberts is already doing blockchain in their transcripting. And we're going to be ahead of Oral Roberts, right? We got to take those guys down. Okay. So, but we're talking about doing like corporate training, branded bachelor's degrees. Imagine this, okay? Imagine two people get hired, or two people are going for a job. We'll get another different two people. One graduates from Harvard Business School. Nike, let's say Nike's going to interview these guys. One graduates from Harvard, one graduates from the Sandbox College, or George Fox, with a Nike degree. Who do you think's going to get the job? Let's say that Nike degree was taught by people from Nike. Well, think about this. What does the Ivy League school have going for it? Brand, right? Everybody knows Harvard, and network. Well, whose brand and network is bigger in a different context? Somebody like Nike, right? Or Apple, or Google, or Amazon. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. So why have colleges been so slow to change? It's complicated, but essentially it can be summarized this way. Old paradigms, semesters, right? Lectures, classrooms, you name it. So think about this. If you wanted to do a class, when can you do a class? In a term, in a session start, or not. So Becca can't have her class because it just doesn't fit our paradigm. And then no room to fail. If Ryan Doherty has to give and explain to you why he's 90%, what was it, 90% a goal? 98%, I mean? 98.5% or something like that? Well, that's not a whole lot of room for failure. So when you have that kind of condition, there's no room for innovation, right? Because innovation is about trying and failing. It's about experimenting. We can't experiment our system for good reason. Because if we are wrong, it could be catastrophic. So this kind of environment especially can make academics feel threatened. Nobody likes somebody coming in and saying, you need to change everything like right now, mid-semester. Well, I can't do that, right? Nor should I necessarily do everything that somebody walks in and says I should do. But that can create this tension. So the sandbox creates space for a win-win situation, for tradition and innovation to coexist. This creates harmony between academe and industry, while providing a seamless and scalable system. Now, you guys saw some of this before. This is what our students created. So they said, this is what my GFU looks like on my phone, and this is what I think it should look like. And basically what they were saying is, this should look like all my other transactional experiences, where it's seamless. I don't talk to a human being. I just find everything I want. I can game my own system. Like, you know, when you buy stuff online, you can game it and find it for as cheap as possible. You do that with travel. So how does this work? The Sandbox College would operate outside the university system. So it would have its own platform for enrolling, teaching, and transcripting students. So think about this. If you were to start a college now, like today, what would be the first thing you would start with? And people give me all kinds of answers for this. And there are a lot of different kinds of answers to this. I'd say the first thing you would start with is that thing that drives you nuts, which is that ERP, right? First thing you would want to do is create the platform that everybody transacts on, create the system, create the rules, create the structure, create the open-endedness to it, what may happen in the future, dream big dreams, leave big holes so that you can do whatever you want. And do it before there's a single soul inside of it who's not impacted. So that's kind of one of the basic premises of the sandbox. The platform would allow anyone to design education solutions. So like if you became an expert, because we do have a lot of experts, right? Some of you are PeopleSoft experts. You could do a PeopleSoft course on there. The front end of our system has a marketplace where anybody in the world can come on and start designing curriculum and do it in modules. And then if we use it, you get paid a residual for it. That's how the future will work. This is already happening, by the way. If you've ever heard of Udemy, this is a pretty fundamental concept. And then a seamless experience for everyone. Of course, this gets back to the basics of what Robin was talking about long time ago. Should be seamless on your system, right? Nobody should have to walk from place to place. You told a story about some kids you ran into who had to take a form to somebody's office. That should never have to happen, right? Not in the 21st century. Now, this would all happen in what's called a codeless environment. This is visual logic. When you have coders, guess what coders have to do? Everything, right? Big or small, they have to do it all because they know code. So your little form for your event that's broken that needs coding, they got to fix that. Now, ideally, you should be able to fix it yourself, right? You should just say, if you know basic logic, if-then statements, you can do code. In the future, you don't need to learn code, okay? And that's already true. There's already systems that code for you. Now, you do have big coding projects, like let's connect Alexa to our system. That's what you want your coders working on, not on your, I don't know. I don't want to pick an event, but an event form for like 5 or 6 people. Okay, this new system and structure allows for change and growth to occur faster. An example I gave in the meeting was ADEC. They tried to form, they have 77 open positions. We were talking to Brett Baker, who's the president of Austin Industries. They were trying to work with PCC to get some students trained to be able to take on the roles that they have, because they're booming, but our workforce is not keeping up. Now imagine this. You try to make a change with some place like PCC, which is higher education plus government. So the board got that. The board got that joke. It's really hard to do. Okay. Yeah, so there were some people laughing at the board meeting. They're like, yeah. The Sandbox College allows academic innovators to step outside of the constraints of the system and join other innovators and just try stuff. Let's falsify things. If somebody has an idea and says that won't work, we'll say, you may be right, but let's try it out. Let's see if you're right. Maybe you are right. But then we'll know, and then we can move on, right? Okay, so this is kind of how the platform looks. You have a front-end marketplace that allows potential instructors, and this could be, like I said, like people like Dave Anderson. It could be you, right? Some of you already teach. Some of you might want to say, you know what, I have a vision for teaching this particular skill that I have, or this piece of knowledge that I get hit up on all the time. You should be able to do that. Then also, students should be able to get in and test drive the education, test drive the system, see what it's like to create a profile, see what it's like to get their name into that system and how seamless it is. So they go, hey, I can already see myself in there. And then we collect it. This also, by the way, becomes a talent acquisition system. Okay, once you get people into your system, well, then all of a sudden you've got a talent base, and then you start telling people, hey, guess who's in my system? Who are you looking for? Like, we should be able to tell ADEC, we got all kinds of people for you. So the users, some of the users are going to be places like Nike, ADEC, Murdoch, right? What if you wanted to do it like a cert for advancement officers? Why not have Murdoch create one? So the co-creation is literally, what do you need? Tell us exactly, or better yet, why don't you go ahead and start designing that for us? I met with a guy from Intel. I was pitching to Sandbox College. We were at that blockchain event, and he was like, my 13-year-old kid wants to work at Intel. He could start doing this right now. I was like, you get this, man. I like you. He was an angel investor, too. We're going to follow up on that. This creates a new paradigm. So co-created education, this is the future. It's already happening. We're years behind. Now, we do some of that. So I don't want to make it sound like we don't do any of it. But it's being done at such a large level. You've got Coursera and Udacity. They're just carving up the future of higher ed. You've got Coursera. You know what they're banking on? Elite college certifications. I'm a prime example. I'm getting a Stanford certification rather than getting a doctorate in business administration. So they got that on me. The other side is Udacity. They're doing nanotech degrees. They're working with elite companies and saying, we're going to build stuff with you guys. But they're doing MOOCs. What we're suggesting is we're going on the more micro level. We want to embed ourselves as the workforce supplier of this region. Okay, so that we don't care what Grand Canyon's doing, because our people don't care about Grand Canyon. They're like, we're all up in this place because these guys solve our problems, right? So it will reduce the cost of the student because the student's not going to be the customer anymore. They're going to be the product. We already talked about them like they're the product. They shouldn't have to pay. They're paying they're taking the whole risk, and everybody's on a risk continuum. Engineers and DPT students, they're at the far end of the continuum, not that worried, right? They're like, yeah, tuition's high, but I know what my payoff is. We've got some other degrees. I use seminary as an example. Like a seminarian takes the full brunt of the degree with an uncertain payout, like D-Min. I don't see any job openings that say must have a D-Min. Actually, there might be. I don't look for jobs like that, so I could be totally wrong. Jamie's like, what? You're right. But you're going to be creating seminary degrees for congregations. Because you know who's super fickle? Churches. They want their people taught a very certain way. So George Fox is either too liberal or too conservative, right? We'll say, well, what do you want? Who do you want to teach it? We'll create exactly what you want, right? It provides a learning system. Your system should be telling you how to organize yourself. So your system is teaching you, here's the classes you're going to be teaching for the next 4 years, because here's everybody in your system. So you got the heads up. Let's go. Interactions will replace transactions. In the future, you're not going to be doing a whole lot of lecturing, okay? The world's best subject matter expert has already lectured on the topic. Watch that. That guy or that lady, free. What you're going to have is you're going to have the people who are doing interactions. You know what our students want? More interaction. So we're going to replace lecture prep and lecture giving with synthesis and interaction, okay, going forward. Transactions will be, like I said, seamless and scalable. Time won't be a constraint. You may take calculus, and you may be able to have a whole year to take that class. And then there's a recurring revenue model, because in the future, any degree worth having will be worth updating. Degrees will expire in the future, just like all really important degrees, medical, legal, teacher, CPA, PMP, that will be the future. And that will be a recurring revenue model for the university going forward. So to wrap this up, rather than migrate into a system, we adopt a nimble open source platform that requires no migration or ramp up. Classes and students just take off. So these are some of the things that I've kind of mentioned already, but this is a prototype. And the idea of the prototype is you're just searching for the viable business model. We don't know what we don't know, which is why we have to try. The good thing about higher education is once you're successful, people copy you, right? So what we're hoping to do is have some success in the sandbox, and once we have the success and do the mess, we'll onboard it into the university. That's the idea. But we want our innovators to jump into that sandbox and build anything that they can think of, and build it as fast as they can and iterate as fast as they can, so we get learning faster and implementation faster. So that's it. That's the sandbox. Yeah, you bet.